Alright, hello and welcome to the third and last part of this amazing animation edit element viewer editing tutorial basic advanced thing. Now, in the last few parts you've learned and also hopefully managed to create some basic animated animation sets yourself. And now we're gonna find out how to do that in a more advanced way. Okay, so I quickly created a new animation set because I realized that what we want to do doesn't actually work with this plain old crate we have down here. So let's take our pyro and give him some overhead materials and look at his red material, which is the whole body thing. We can create a Fong Boost attribute and we're gonna try to animate this. Now, one thing that you might know about this if you watched the previous video is that it's not a value that goes between 0 and 1, we can actually get it way higher as well, just it makes it shiny, more or less shiny. So we're gonna find out how to create a slider that can actually be remapped. Because take a look at this, we have our alpha value slider, and if we try go right click remap slider range, absolutely nothing happens. And that is because we didn't set it up at all, obviously. We need to have another step to get that working. So let us do that. Now, first off, we're going to create the animation sets as last time. Now this guy obviously has a bunch more controls, so we might want to even create our own category for this one. Now first off, we create our new slider like usual. We name this one shininess. How do you write that? I'll just write Fong. I actually have no idea. And we're gonna give it the same three properties we already know. Value, default value being floats. You can't have anything else as floats, by the way. Anything else, and the slider does not animate even if you give it a channel. And yeah, the element attribute named channel. Now, default value can be 1, it doesn't really matter. Actually, the default value is based on the minimum and maximum range that you give it, so well, I guess it doesn't matter, we'll just set it to 0.5. You'll see this later, I'll get back to it. Now we're gonna put this one in a new category, which okay, we already did it last time. I don't know why I'm saying we're doing it this time. We've already done this. We called it the materials here as well. Yeah, never mind that. Alright, so we did that. This is the pretty basic stuff. Cool. I don't know why I make them all pink, it's just easy to get color. Anyway, yeah, you see the default value is 0.5 right now, so it's in the middle. Now, we need to copy this one because we'll get back to it later. Now we're gonna go to the channels clip again. Don't get overwhelmed by all the channels here, these are all irrelevant for us. Okay, so we're gonna have the Fong in. Now the reason I'll call this one, it will be obvious pretty soon. And we're gonna paste it as reference. Exact the same thing as we did last time. We just link it up to the channel and that's it. Now, where should it go is the big question here, because if we just link it like we did with the alpha, you saw, we couldn't actually remap it. So we'll need another part, and this is a new concept that I didn't introduce before, which is called operators. Those are stored inside of the animation sets. So we'll go to the animation set of our pyro. And here you see a category called operators. It's empty right now, which is pretty surprising, but we'll quickly make our own. Now, what is an operator? Operator is basically a sort of like a program. I know I already called the the channel as a program, but you do see that the channels are also an operator. They're just a very simple one. They just copy and paste. They don't do anything else. Like, operators in general have some form of input, and whatever input you give them, they're gonna calculate an output. You see down here are pack and unpack operators. These ones can be used to create or you know, either vector 2, vector 3, color, all that stuff. We can just basically show this one. You see here like the color, you can see here you have a red, green and blue thing. You type something in and it, okay, I shouldn't type this. Yeah, okay, I'll type in numbers like that, and you see it creates a color for me. So this is how you would, for example, create a slider, like red, green, blue sliders, map those to a color. Or if you want to do it the other way, there's also unpack color, which you take a color and it gives you the RGBA values for it. It's pretty cool. Now, what we're gonna do is something way simpler. Now, well, okay, it's theoretically simpler, but SFM makes it unnecessarily complex. We're gonna create an expression operator. Now, to put it very simply, what an expression operator does is you give it a mathematical expression here in the expr field, and it's gonna calculate a result for us. Now we can enter anything we want. 5 plus 2. Now the thing is, these things don't really update very well, so it might take a while. There you see. You just need to open and close it again, it works most of the time. Result 7. We could do whatever we want. We could do the sine wave of 2. Cool. Anything goes. Now the exciting part about an expression here is we can also create variables. Any element that is, I'm not sure what types work, I think int and float work. Anything that's an attribute can also be used in the expression. And SFM nicely provides some attribute names which can be changed using the GUI, which are a float called high, a float called low, and a float called value. Now, be sure to look at what I wrote because they're not named very nicely. But you see, you can basically imagine how this works. It's a lerp. You have a minimum value, let's say 0, a maximum value like 10, and a value, which we can for example say 0.5, and that should return 5. Of course, we're also going to need an expression. For that, we need to type lerp value, comma low, comma high. It's basically a built-in function that does this for us. And you see, it gives us the correct result. The middle value between 0 and 10 is 5. You see there's this checkbox here, spew result. This might come in handy at some time. It basically shows you the value of the operator whenever it changes inside of the console. I should maybe name this one as well. Let's just call this fromOperator. I don't really use it much, but it might come in handy if you need to figure out why an operator isn't really giving you the result you want. Okay, so we have our operator. This is going to be the target of our channel that we just created. We're going to put the value of the slider into the operator attribute called value. And you see it instantly changed to 0 because the slider is set to 0. Now, here you see where the mode comes in effect. Alright, so we're gonna change all the mode values of our channels to 3 because I'm not sure anymore which one needs to be set to 1. I'll try to figure this out later. But anyway, we have our channel that pumps in the value to the operator. Now we can already try this one, I suppose. It's nothing really exciting. If we set the value of the fong to 0.5, you see it gives us the middle between 0 and 10, which is 5. Now the great thing is, SFM is smart enough to realize that we named variables high and low, and it now provides us this dialog which we can just change the values in. So we could say default value 2 between 0 and 30, it changes these, and it changes the default value over here. And as you can see, this is what I was talking about before, default value is always going to be a number between 0 and 1, so it reverse lerps, basically, the default value entered in the dialog back to the 0 and 1 range. Anyway, what do we do now? We have our operator, but nowhere to go. We're going to create another channel, which is going to get the value from the operator and do something with it. This is why I'm going to call this one fromOut. So you have the input value and we have the output value. Now here we're going to paste our expression operator, and we want to get the value called result. What do we want to do with it? We want to take the material that has the fong boost in it, and we want to write the attribute $fong boost. Yeah. Now it seems like keeping this at 1 actually works. I'm not too sure. Yeah, it seems to work fine. I'll try animating it as well just to make sure now. Okay, so I'm sorry, this is pretty complicated stuff, so that's why I'm not too sure myself at this point. But if you want to be on the safe side, you can change all of the mode values to 3. That's how SFM itself does it. If you really care about, you know, storage space, if you think these values log things are gonna get too big over time, you could set this to 1 and then it's not gonna bother you. But yeah, you can keep it however you want. 3 is always going to work out. So now we have our slider that can change font for us. Fantastic. We could even give this one like negative numbers or something, then have really spooky stuff going on. Yeah, this works just fine. Now this is more complex than just a regular slider, but it's also not really anything exciting. This could also be done with this right-click create animation set thing. So we're gonna have some more exciting use cases. Now, because just having color as 3 sliders is gonna be pretty tedious and boring, we're gonna have a bit more interesting thing, and we're gonna have... Actually, I have an idea. How about we create one slider that just determines like a color as a rainbow? Oh, that's gonna be so cool. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so we're going to create our slider. Okay, so we're gonna create a control. We'll call this one... Actually, why are we creating this one? We can just copy-paste the font control we created and edit it, because as you remember, copy-pasting creates a new one. These have different IDs, so we can edit this one independently. Of course, the channel, we need to change that one later, but this is gonna work fine. So we'll name this one Rainbow. We're also gonna put it into our control group. Of course, you could create subgroups as well. If you create new children here, you can have more groups inside of groups, which is maybe useful if you have like a lot of things. But I never really did too much with that. Anyway, so we have our control. Now we go to the channels clip and create a new channel. We'll call this one Rainbow In. And, well, what do we want? We want the value. Now, I might need to actually rename this later because we need to do a bunch more than just a single value being carried over. But it's gonna be an interesting thing anyway. Oh, and of course, don't forget to copy the channel into the thing. All of these steps, if you fuck up one of them, your entire thing is not gonna work. So really gotta double, triple check every step. Like write down a to-do list or something, like first that, then that, when you're doing these basic steps. Okay, so we're gonna animate $color. Now we could either have a color type, but I guess it's simpler to use a vector 3, because the color attribute has like, the color type has an alpha as well, which we don't need. So vector 3 is gonna be easier to work with because it has one less property. Of course, we could hardcode. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's gonna be around the same thing anyway. Now, what do we want? Let's have, for example, the slider, like the values first go to red, and then to green, and then to blue. And to make this easier to see, we're gonna turn the font down a bit. Just a little. Okay. Actually, it's just set to default. Whatever. You'll see it eventually. Now, what we wanna do is create one operator for each of the color segments. Because, as you already have seen, when we want to create a vector 3, in our case a vector 3 at least, we'll have a pack vector 3 operator, which is going to create a vector 3 from 3 values, x, y, and z. This one's going to be called our rainbow constructor. Now, I'm not too sure if the order of operators matters, but just to make it easier on like my brain as well, I'm gonna create the expression operators and put those above the rainbow thing. Actually, let's first create the first one. Let's call this one rainbow red. It's gonna be the red value. And the reason I'm creating it first is so we can copy this value float as well. I'm not sure what the expressions are gonna be yet. We'll see that soon. We can mess around with it a bit, have some fun. And now let's reorder this so the constructor is last. Now we could actually already create the channel which creates it. That's gonna be the rainbow out, which takes the vector3 pack operator. It takes the vector from that and it pumps it to the $color, which we didn't set up yet. Or well, we set it up, but we didn't copy it yet. So let's do that real quick. So I already have something to work with. Okay, so I'm going a bit all over the place, but it's gonna come together eventually. So you see, this already works. We can change these numbers manually, and it's gonna change the color of the pyro just fine. Now, we of course want to use the slider for that, so that's what the input sliders are gonna work for. Now, we're gonna have a lot of steps, as you might be able to imagine. We have the R, G, and B values, which correspond to X, Y, Z. We have them, like we have 3 of them for the three operators, basically. So we want to have 3 inputs. So we're gonna have rainbow in for red, for green, and for blue. And then we also need the ones to pass it from the operators to the channels again. I'll just show it. It's easier to show than to explain, honestly. Alright. So let's have the input for red, and for green, and for blue. We want to have the value for all 3 of those, because we want to have one slider controlling everything. Now, where do we want to go with that? We want to go to the 3 operators we created. This is where you might start seeing an issue with this system. You have to keep going back and forth between everything, which is a real big pain. Okay, so this might look stupid, but what we're doing is we're copying the value from the slider to the value attribute of the expression operator. So now we could do something with the value. For now I can just write value divided by 2. I don't know what to do with it. And you see the value updates here. It's not gonna go anywhere yet because it's only stuck on the operator, the expression operator, but at least we already have that part going. Now we need to do that for all the other ones. So we take the green and we copy it to the green. And also say value. Now we can also have like our expression here. Let's say value divided by 2 plus 0.25. Actually that's gonna be a, okay, that's fine. And last but not least we're gonna have blue. And that's gonna be going from the blue to the value. Here we can do value divided by 2 plus 0.5. Now these expressions are pretty simple. You can have way more complicated stuff. I'll leave a link in the description to the wiki page that tells you about all the mathematical functions you can use here. They really allow for a lot if you want to have a lot going on. At the end I'm going to talk about limitations as well, but we'll wait with that for a bit. So now let's create the remaining channels, which are gonna tie it all together. Those are gonna be the ones that carry the values from the expression operators to the pack operator. We're gonna call these ones out because they're gonna output it from the operators. Okay. My SFM is getting pretty slow because of how huge this list is. I hope it doesn't, crash again. Okay, and we're gonna do ourselves a favor and just copy-paste the expression operators from here. This is a tip that might save you a lot of time. You can just, you know, take the references and copy the references without actually going to where you saved the original. You might know, like, believe me by now, but these IDs are gonna be the same ones as the originals. Wait, where is it? This one? Oh, fuck. You copied the wrong one. I did. Yeah, you gotta be really careful with this. At least I noticed. So this one is the same as this one. Okay, so this works again. I should make this a bit bigger. Man, you should have said something. I did not notice. Anyway. Okay, so now we want to get the result attribute from each of them, as we did with the rescaling thing. Result is the thing where the expression operator stores its calculation results. What do we want to do with it? We're going to go to the override material and go. Actually, no, that's actually wrong. We want to go to the operator that packs our vector, the one that creates the vector from the 3 values, and we want to feed those values into it. So red is X, green is Y, blue is Z, and each of those is gonna be the pack operator. This is already one limitation I'll take, like I'll talk about straight away. And channel can only pump from one attribute to one other attribute. Even though it can be an array, you still in the end are gonna have to have like these operators which you have to rely on them existing basically in order to do this kind of thing. There's not an operator for every type, so you might run into some limitations if you don't have an operator that can create something for you like that. Anyway, this might be a bit underwhelming. Actually, it's very underwhelming because it's not working. So let's debug it. We'll do this together. We have our slider, changes value fine. We have our expression operator, changes value fine. Then we have our output expression operator, which takes the result, and then we give the result to this, which doesn't seem to update for some reason. So why is it not updating is the question. Oh, yeah, this is the bug I was talking about, actually. Oh god, it's all coming back to me now. Okay, this is something that has screwed me over so many times, and I really advise you to actually, like, try to understand the pain of SFM at this point. You see how the log usually gets automatically generated? You see this vector3 log, whatever. Cool, right? Well, guess what? It doesn't always generate it. It seems to happen if you copy-paste channels, but not always. So what you have to do in such a case is create the log yourself. Now, since we are copying a float value to a float property, we just need to create a float log. You need to do that every time you see a log like that not being created after you've specified both the from and the to element. Afterwards, it's gonna work just fine. Fantastic. Now, this doesn't really seem like a rainbow. I know I could do more advanced math with it. Actually, yeah, I will. Give me a sec. Okay, I've messed around with it a bit and came up with some expressions that seem to work in some way. Now, this is of course a bit overkill, and it also seems to be a bit wrong. I'm no mathematician in any case, and just messing around with it anyway. If you want to have something more precise, there's a lot of algorithms online on how to convert a hue value to red, green, blue values. Anyway, I'm gonna change his texture to white so we can see the effect a bit better. And here you can see it changes color just nicely. And you see here the values updating as the slider changes. Now, we can see this box up here anyway because the code of SFM to detect the expression operator is a bit bad. I'm actually curious what happens if you enter something here. I'm guessing nothing. Oh, no, it's the wrong one. Yeah, it actually creates the high and low values, but they're not gonna do anything, obviously. So, and it's the green for some reason. Anyway, in the max min thing is only gonna show up if your animation set is hooked up to a channel that refers to an operator, an expression operator. But it's of course not gonna always work. So you can't really change this unless you do some like chaining or whatever. It doesn't really matter. All I'm trying to say here is ignore that. I just realized I skimmed over one tiny detail which I've just not seen here, this time variable. This is a variable that gets provided by SFM, which gives you the time in seconds of your current of the clip. I'm not sure if it's relative or absolute. Let's find out. Basically, you're gonna get the time in seconds since the shot has started. And this can be really useful if you want to animate something. So, just to show what I actually mean, let's disable these, which I can probably just do by multiplying times 0. The reason I have so many parentheses here is because this thing is notorious for being bad with the ordering of expressions and stuff. I just like to make sure that it calculates it correctly, but it usually doesn't. Anyway, so let's just have like a sine wave of time, for example. And then you see, like, if I play this, it's gonna have this just flashing. Of course, with -1, it's not really gonna do anything, but you get the point anyway. You see, it doesn't always animate. This is a bit lagging behind at times. You just have to mouse over or reopen it to get it to update. You see how broken SFM is, but you already know that if you're this far. Anyway, yeah, this can be used to animate something on its own. It's rarely a good idea, but I mean, for example, if you wanted to have the idea that I mentioned once of like a fire that has like flashing or something, or yeah, blinking, changing color or whatever, you could do that automatically. But I would still suggest being able to control it with a slider. Anyway, yeah, if you want to know more uses of this, I can't really tell you, but I can tell you what tools are available. There's quite a lot of cool stuff out there, which, in the expressions, for example, but even then you see the amount of operators here. There's quite a lot. I'm excited if anyone's ever gonna bother with any of it and like try to figure out some cool things you could do. I haven't really found anything more than what I showed you. Just did some random tests and then decided, okay, I understand this stuff well enough, let's teach everyone else how to do it. There's one thing which I could still mention, I suppose. The pyro was a bit of a bad example, so let's take the demo man. And you see how these sliders can be split between left and right. This is also something that's not necessarily related to flexes. You see, if we go to the smile slider, which we've just edited, it has a few different options, also part of DmeElement, so it's all custom. You have the default value, like normal, but then you have it split into left value and right value with respective channels. This basically allows you to have two different channels for a single slider. Of course, you need to use this one in combination, but it still allows you to do whatever you want with it. Which, you know, has some potential, I assume. All the other sliders of flexes or whatever are really the same thing we've talked about. The only thing is that they are connecting to a flex controller operator, which then tells the game model that it links to, in this case the demo man, to like use this flex weight for a flex called multi-smile. Anyway, yeah, this should be all the information that's relevant, I assume. There are a lot of things you could try to mess around with. I haven't messed around with everything that there is to see. For example, the types of DAGs that you have, there are some pretty interesting ones. There's these other light types here. As amazing as they sound like, they don't work, but if someone gets them working, I would love them forever. Yeah, if you can just look around everywhere. Like, there's a lot of hidden systems in SFM that you could maybe get working. So yeah, if you have any questions, if I maybe explained something really badly, I should have said this in every video, honestly. If I explained something pretty bad, you can tell me. I'll try to explain it again in hopefully a more cohesive way. If you have something to share with me, like you've managed something really cool and exciting, then please let me know. I would be really interested what other people are gonna do with more advanced element viewer things. Other than that, I think that's all I have to say. Hope you have a fun time. Hope this actually had some use to you. You managed to watch all 3 parts, so it must mean that you're in some way interested in all of this. So I hope you're actually gonna put this to good use and actually do something with it. I certainly have used it a fair amount of times. I made some scripts with it, with the knowledge I got here, and yeah, it might inspire some of you to also do the same. Alright, have a good day.